So today I'm joined by Gareth Warburton. Gareth's former GB and Wales professional athlete, originally from North Wales, specialised in 400 and 800 metres, Gareth?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. See, Google and Wikipedia is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Gareth is now a level 4 sports massage therapist running his own clinic in South Wales in Cardiff. Guy, I wanted to get you on because a couple of topics that I've been exploring recently have been around body maintenance and people coming into triathlon for the first time are generally faced with a new set of problems in the sense of they've got 3 disciplines to train for. And I think it's where a lot of people fall down straight away, that they just try and push through injuries, push through niggles without really looking after them. And again, that there is something that I thought was important, and ultimately you are the expert in this. So yeah, it's definitely to sort of bring you in on that. And I'm assuming that, you see a lot of it. You see a lot of triathletes within the clinic and things.
Yeah. Firstly, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. And I see a lot of triathletes on a daily basis, really. Lots of runners, lots of cyclists, lots of swimmers, and lots of triathletes as a whole. And injury, is a big issue, and it is a big issue in triathlon. Like you said, it's 3 different disciplines, so it's quite hard on the body. It's not just the running, it's the cycling, it's the swimming. Swimmers, I see a lot of people with rotator cuff injuries that come in with maybe problems around their shoulders, which are 4 different muscles that help move the shoulder. In swimming. But it's not the swimming that really causes the injury, it's mainly the cycling and the running. It's that pounding the streets, it's the cycling up the hills. So injury is a big issue in triathlon, and it's something that people should be aware of, and they need to start looking after themselves a little bit better.
Do you find, this is definitely my experience, right? I come from a footballer and rugby background, so running, as sort of, I've done it for years. Don't get me wrong, when I was a kid, I cycled a little bit and I swam a little bit. Nothing competitively, though. So then when I came into triathlon within my 30s, apart from having a little bit of running background, I was then faced with trying to take up 3 extra sports, and 2 extra sports, of which I probably didn't have the muscle memory, the muscle strength, and the flexibility to do. And so is that something that you feel could be leading to injuries in the first instance?
Yeah, I think you've got triathletes that are coming either from running, either from cycling or swimming, or you've got people like yourself maybe that are coming from team sports, so rugby, football, which the team sports people maybe not so much, don't look after themselves as much because they just don't know how to, or they haven't done, because football hasn't really got a history of looking after themselves. They just do what the team does. They warm up with the team. Whereas runners and cyclists and individual sports people, they tend to sort of know how to look after themselves a little bit more because they have to. They don't have that team behind them. So yeah, I definitely agree with you.
And going back to sort of like your professional background, I'm assuming that you, with GB and with Wales, you probably had access to therapists on a regular basis. So, how often would you see someone? And I'm pushing the boundaries here because I'm talking about people who are professionals, and the people who follow Life of Tri generally aren't professionals. They're the amateurs. But like, how often would you sort of have body maintenance sort of sessions and things like that?
Yeah, so like you said, I was lucky because I was a funded athlete, so I had access to it every day if I wanted it. So I'd probably get treatment 2-3 times a week, whether that would be a massage, a physio, maybe some sort of maintenance work, stretching. So I'd see somebody before every sort of big session that I would do on the track. So if it was a big session on a Monday, then I'd always see somebody beforehand, and maybe I'd even see somebody afterwards. But that's the extreme of in the sporting world, whereas like you said, your listeners might be a little bit more new to the sport. So they wouldn't need to see anybody that much because maybe they're not training as much. I was training twice a day, every day, 6 days a week. That's a lot of training. whereas your listeners maybe are only doing a couple of sessions a week, maybe more. But they probably don't need to see somebody as often, but it's something that they maybe need to start thinking about.
It's definitely something that when I first came into the sport, and I was one of the foolish ones who just signed straight up for Ironman without ever doing a triathlon before. And I had a conversation with someone on a previous podcast who had done exactly the same thing. And I was saying, "You fool, what have you done?" And I was thinking, that's exactly what I did as well. But
ignorance is bliss, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Because I remember going down and I watched Ironman Wales, the first ever one, 2011. And I thought, this is amazing. I'd really love to do this. And it took me 2 years to then sign up and get the courage to do it. And then when I was training, I didn't have a clue. I thought that I had to train, the intensity of training had to replicate racing.
So were you a member of a club or?
I was part of a running club.
Yeah.
And there was people within the running club that had done Ironman previously, but you get a little bit, pig-headed to it, and it's that typical mentality that you always feel that you have to do more, and I know a lot of people out there who have done that as well, especially people who won't follow a specific plan.
So I was going to ask, do they have a plan then that they follow? Did you have a plan? Did you get something on the internet?
I got a bit of a mixture of, so within triathlon, there's Don Fink, who's a famous coach. And his book has been sold probably thousands, if not millions of times world over. But I took that plan, I adapted it for myself, but I always felt, I need to do a little bit more. And I think that's where a lot of, and I think individual runners do this as well, where they always think, I got to do more, or I've got to play catch up if I miss a session.
Yeah, I think, so I don't want to use the term amateur, but I think amateur runners, or triathletes or swimmers or cyclists, they think that more is better, whereas that's not the case. That's such a young person thing to think about. I thought that when I was younger. I used to train as hard as I could, as much as I could, but eventually you get injured, and that's not good. Then you having to go back to square one. What you learn is moving forward is that you need to do quality more than quantity, and that's a big thing to learn and understand.
When I started, again, going back to what I said, it was definitely quantity that I started with. And I would push sessions. I would run as hard, as fast as I could. I'd be really pleased that I've come away with a 10-miler, and I'd be not far off race pace. And then, wonder why the next 2 days I'm still bloody aching and I'm stiff as hell. And then it wasn't until I started doing a little bit more training around heart rate, or using the heart rate zones and things. But I used to hate it. I used to go out and do a zone 2 run, and I'd be shouting on my watch to stop beeping because my heart rate was too high or something. I absolutely hate it. And I know a lot of people now who getting into triathlon are doing exactly the same thing, and it's the same mistakes that are coming back.
But you learn from those mistakes as well. I think you can tell people, but they don't know until they've actually done it. And the more they do, the more training they do, the more competitions they do, and that's when they'll start to learn that they need to have easy days and they need to have hard days. You can't have hard days every day, because eventually something's got to give.
Yeah, and I used to think that I would train hard, and then I'd be all right. I'd have a deep tissue massage, and it'll be fine. I'll be able to train hard the next day. And it's not just the muscles that you're physically using to move. Your lungs, your heart, everything.
Yeah, it's everything. Yeah, it's absolutely everything. Yeah, it's your mind as well. It's nice to have. You don't want to be hitting the sessions hard all the time. You need a break from it. You need a break from just the mental stress of it, because training is hard.
Yeah. So thinking back to like the triathletes that you've previously you support, and I'm one of them. Like, what common injuries you seeing? And you said about swimmers, and
swimmers are sort of mainly around the shoulder sort of injuries, but it's probably more cyclists and runners that I've seen mainly get injured. Like I said, it's the pounding the streets on the running, it's the hitting these hills, they're going out for 5, 6, 7 hour rides. In the running aspect, it's calf, Achilles, soleus, it's that lower limb area that really gets pounded, especially if they're doing stuff like brick sessions where they've been on the bike for a period and then they come off and they start running. If they're not used to that, then the Achilles and the calf do get tight and they do get problems around there. So that's a real common issue. In cycling, more sort of glute, bum, hip sort of issues where they've been sitting down for a long period of time on the bike.
Yeah.
But that's the general common sort of issues, but it can be all kinds of different things.
It's funny that you everything you've listed there is basically every injury that I've had in the last few years.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, especially the backs of the legs to the lower back, it's a bit of an oxymoron, but it is all connected.
Mm-hmm.
And I often find that my calves, that's where the pain is, but it's not always where the sort of the cause is. That makes any sense?
Yeah, you got a rooftop. It's not always the cause. The cause could be up, it could be down, it could be along the glute, it could be lower down on the foot. It's hard to know. Like I said, everyone's different, so it's impossible to know without having to look at people individually where that issue is. But lower limb is a big issue in running, and go into sort of exercise-wise, it might be something that they want to have a look at moving forward, because it would be an important area to work on.
So thinking about the types of treatments that you offer, obviously sort of deep tissue sort of massage is definitely one that's a lot of people would be common with. What else is out there?
So it depends what the person comes in with, if they're coming in for a maintenance work or if they're coming in actually injured. So you've got two ends of the spectrum really. A maintenance might just be a flush massage. It might not be even a deep tissue. It might just be a bit of soft tissue work, getting rid of any toxins, anything that's left in the muscles, giving them a bit of a stretch, sending them on the way. And that's the sort of athlete maybe I'd see once every 3-4 weeks. They're common, they just come in every now and then. Or it could be somebody that's injured where we would specifically work on an area. I do dry needling, which is like a acupuncture needle. You'd needle in the muscle, needle into different areas. And that's quite a good technique as well to use for areas that are injured.
So how does that work? Does that sort of flush out as well, or does that release pressure?
It's different things. It depends what you're trying to do. So it is like an acupuncture needle. They've got different length needles, different girth needles, and you would aim for areas of tight tension within the muscle, and it'd work on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is a bit of a big word. But so it dampens down the pain receptors in the muscle and resets the muscle back to resting length, hopefully. So it's similar to massage, but it's just a different technique.
And you talk about sort of pain receptors and things. One thing that you've definitely sort of spoke to me previously on my treatments is around not so much muscle memory, but maybe I am going down that route. But definitely the social aspect of injuries, like because as you know, I've had a bit of a glute issue for coming up to about 12 months actually. And I always thought, you've asked me before, do you think some of it could be psychological? And I always used to think, no, it's not. It's an injury. How can it be psychological? And then the more I think about it, the more I think, is my body, or am I protecting a certain area of my body? Am I running in a certain way because I'm thinking an injury may come?
Yeah, pain can be a learned response. It may have been an injury there. I'm not sure on you, but as you an example, it may have been an injury 6 months ago, and the brain has remembered the pain, has remembered that, like you said, the muscle memory from that, and it's still referring the pain to your brain. That's a common issue. Not for everybody, but it's something to be aware of.
Yeah, no, it's definitely got me thinking a little bit different on,
It's the power of the mind. The mind is very, very powerful.
Yeah, and I always say this to people when I talk about injury. I always say, oh, it's always the right side of my body, and maybe it is always the right side of my body, but maybe it's also my head thinking, oh, injury on the left leg again. So
possibly, yeah. It's hard to know, but that could be one of your symptoms.
Cool. So, with regards to sort of your regular clients and how often you see them, and thinking about triathlon, because often people talk about triathlon, it can mean a number of different things as regards to the intensity and the type of activity that they do. And you can have anything from a sprint triathlon, which could be done in an hour to an hour and a half, up to Ironman, which is technically up to 17 hours and beyond, because we all know there's silly people out there that go ultra. So if someone turned up to you and sort of said, right, I'm aiming for a sprint Olympic distance triathlon, I just want to ensure that I keep up regular maintenance and things, how often would you suggest taking up sort of that, massage and things like that?
I'd make sure that they were long enough away from the event. I do see people that come in days before a big event that they've never had a massage before, and that's definitely a big no. You need to try these things out beforehand. Massage and treatment might not be for everybody. It might not suit certain people, and that's fine. But you need to try it out yourself in training. I see people that turn up at competitions because they have these massages there for free, and people are getting these treatments before they compete in the morning of a race, of a competition. And that's a cardinal sin. No one should be getting treatment if they haven't had treatment before. You need to be trying these things out in training beforehand. Going back to the maintenance question, if it was somebody that came in 6 months, 4 months before a competition, there's no guaranteed answer, but something like maybe once a month, once every 3 weeks, if they were training a lot, if they were training 3 or 4 times a week, once a month is adequate. We'd go through what they would want to get out of it. Would be maybe some soft tissue, maybe some deep tissue, maybe some stretching, and it would benefit them. And
going back to your point there about seeing sports masseuses at events, literally in an expo the day before, in an expo on the morning. What's your view on that? Because I was always thought, and if you, like you said, if you were someone who regularly had that type of treatment, I was always told never to have something like the day before or a couple of days before, just to allow your body to recover. But is that the case?
It depends what the treatment is. No one should be having a deep tissue massage the day before. No, nobody should be having that. But when I was training, we would train specifically for pre-event competitions. I used to get treatment an hour, 2 hours before a comp.
Would that be more around warming up the muscles?
I would do a warm up myself. I'd go in, I would have a stretch, I would have mobilization, sort of mobility work. Depending on how I feel. Sometimes, because in the track and field you have rounds, so sometimes you'd have a round every day. So you get really tired by the 3rd round. If you made the final, then you'd need maybe a little bit of extra work. It depends where you're competing as well. If you're competing somewhere warm like India or Qatar, then you might need a little bit of extra work. I can't remember what the question was exactly, but I lost my track.
Basically around how close to
so nobody should be doing anything different prior to a competition. They should be trying it out in training.
And ultimately, it goes for a number of different things, not just sort of
anything.
Gels, for
gels,
example.
Exactly. No one should be trying out gels.
The amount of people I know rock up like I don't know.
Well, it's probably half the competition. I bet you most of them. Because if they're supplying gels or supplying stuff, then you don't know how it's going to react in the body, but you should be hopefully getting hold of these stuff that they're giving out for free beforehand, and at least
it was my biggest fear when I first did Ironman Wales that I had to sort of test, because it was power bar at the time. I had to test what they were doing just in case, because no one wants to be caught short in a 17-hour event.
No chance.
So what are you up to these days, Guy? Are you training for anything? When did you stop sort of the professional side of things?
So I retired. I was probably getting on for about 5 years now on the track. And then I had a bit of a break from training, from running. Running is obviously my sport. I do a little bit of cycling, but running's my big passion. And last year I signed up for a competition in September this year. Whether it goes ahead or not, who knows? But at the moment it's still going on. It's called the Ring of Fire. It's an ultra marathon, 135 miles around Anglesey. So at the moment I'm training for that.
So a bit of a step up from
half a mile
around the track.
Yeah, seeing as the longest race I've done is 10k, I'm stepping up to a 135-mile race. But I'm going through all those things about trying gels out, trying foods out now, and all that. So it's quite exciting. Quite enjoying it.
It happens to the best of us. The older we get, the longer distances we go.
Slower we get in on the sprints. We have to go higher.
No, exactly. Oh no, that's cool. And that's, where did you say that was Anglesey?
Yeah, so it's a whole way around Anglesey.
Yeah. So is it really 100 miles around?
Yeah, 135 miles all the way around.
Bloody hell.
It's a big island.
No. Wow.
So it should be quite good. It's a coastal path, so it should be a bit of like undulating terrain, a bit of sand, and should be really nice though.
Okay, well, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed that goes ahead for.
That's it. Yeah, we don't know, do we? At the moment, I know all these events now have been changing and they've all been pushed back and everything. So.
And any desire, or if you may have done one already, to do a triathlon?
Yeah, I've thought about it a lot. My girlfriend does them, and she's done quite a few of them over the years. She's done Slate Man, Sandman, and a couple of them down in the Gower here. She loves doing them, so yeah, I'd like to maybe. But the hard thing about triathlon is it's the multi-discipline event, isn't it? It's getting out cycling, it's getting out swimming, it's getting out running. So
and that's it. It's the time. It's finding the time. Even if you are one of the most disciplined people in the world, and you've got your training down to a T, you still got to find the time to get out and swim.
You do.
And if you pick an event which has a sea swim, well, then you got to find somewhere to
exactly. You got to drive there, and then you got to get into your wetsuit and swim and get home. Whereas running, you can just run from your door.
Yeah,
that's what I like about running and cycling as well, so, to an extent.
Yeah, well, and where we are in South Wales, you're never too far away from a hill. For the cycling element, anyway. So.
No, definitely. Go up Caerphilly Mountain. I've been running up there quite a lot recently. It's quite nice.
Yeah, there's some good routes around there. Excellent. Right, Gareth, thank you very much for this. Much appreciated. No
problem.
No doubt I may well ask you to come on for another episode.
That's
find another topic to talk about. But yeah, thanks very much, and we'll catch up soon.
Cool.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.